Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's 9 o'clock. We're going to call this meeting to order. This is a special meeting of Town Council, Orangeville's Town Council. So I'd like to have a motion. Do I have to read the notice again? Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Clerk. I've got to read the notice again. Due to efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19 and protect all individuals, the council chambers of Town Hall will not be open to the public to attend council meetings until further notice. Excuse me. Members of the public who have an interest in a matter listed on the agenda may, up until 10 a.m. on the day of the scheduled council meeting, email councilagenda@orangeville.ca indicating your request to speak to a matter listed on the agenda. Phone number and conference ID code will be provided to you so that you may join the virtual meeting and provide your comments to council. Pardon me. Members of the public wishing to raise a question during the public question period of the council meeting may begin at 9 p.m. on the evening of the council meeting. Call 1-289-801-5774 and enter conference ID 449-457-553 #. Correspondence or email submitted will be considered as public information and entered into the public record. If you require access to information in an alternate format, please contact the Clerk's Division by phone at 519-941-0440 extension 2256 or via email at clerksdepartment@orangeville.ca. Councilors, may I have a motion to approve the agenda? Councilor Peters, seconded by Councilor Taylor. All in favor?
Yes.
Passed. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interests? Seeing none, we'll move on to our national anthem. Mr. Bernard.
One second.
Just needs a minute.
The traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa of the Three Fires Confederacy. This meeting is being aired on public television and or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of this meeting. So the purpose of this meeting is to discuss a mask bylaw, item 7.1. This is a proposed motion by Councillor Taylor. Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak to this?
I certainly can, Your Worship. I think the precipice of this was a email that was received by all of council from Dr. Mercer. And after I read Dr. Mercer's note, it just became apparent to me that we should put something formal in place. So I crafted up this brief notice of motion and sent it off. And I think the reality is a lot of our business owners are feeling pressure of what's happening in town, and they're being put in the very awkward position of having to dictate to their customers about wearing a mask for those that don't partake. So what this bylaw will do is they'll make it a law that that it's done. It will also ensure that we can ask our local police force, it'll be the OPP by this time, but ask them to enforce it. And this will take the pressure off of other residents and the businesses in our town. So I think it's very important that we push this forward.
Very good. I also wanted to give credit to Councillor Sherwood, who back 3 weeks ago or more asked County Council to look at making masks mandatory in their buildings. This was, I think, came out of a conversation that Councillor Sherwood had with a resident. The close confines of multi-residential buildings, the hallways, the common areas was a concern. I can tell you folks, I traveled across Canada this summer and I stayed in probably 15 different motels and hotels, I should say. And every single one of them was mandatory masks in the common areas of the hotel, including hallways. So, Councillor Sherwood, would you like to add something to this?
Yes, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Taylor, for bringing this forward. I was actually I actually have a motion drafted up very similar to this, and I'm hoping that you will be open to adding a little bit more of meat and potatoes to your motion. I'll give you a little bit of history. As Mayor Brown mentioned, back on August 13th, a resident and I spoke on behalf of County Council for a resident concerned about mass. The City of Toronto had just put a bylaw enforcing for multi-residential condominiums and apartments that have elevators, common rooms, indoor laundry facilities, mail rooms, garbage and lobbies and elevators. And she was quite concerned, not just for county-owned buildings, not just for seniors buildings, but all apartment buildings. And since the City of Toronto had done that, we thought that was a really good thing to add to the measures that were already in there. So I went to County Council only because, rather than our local council, because our health falls under Dufferin. I thought we should start there, because when I reached out to Dr. Mercer, she said a local bylaw could be done either at municipal level or at the regional level or county level. So I went to council asking on behalf of the citizen if Dufferin County would consider it. I had a motion for us to do it, to come to Orangeville based on what was going to happen. And ironically, the report from staff, even though I asked August 13th, is just coming to a county committee tomorrow. And so they will be making a decision then to recommend that to whether it be throughout County of Dufferin or not. Now, based on the readings of the report that I have read, that's going to the committee meeting tomorrow, they're not going to recommend in full enforcement of mass, due mainly because the County of Dufferin does not have a bylaw enforcement department. They have no bylaw enforcement officers, where we do. So I was, like I say, intending, based on those tomorrow, if there's no recommendation other than providing education is what they're going to suggest for their buildings. And they said that it's a little hard to enforce privately owned apartment building owners, condominium owners, or commercial owners that have, say, elevators, like the health department itself, for example, where they have people going into different commercial properties within that building and using elevators or in a common room. So if you're open to it, Councillor Taylor, I would like to share with you the things that I wonder if we could add in addition to your motion.
Certainly.
Is it okay if I go ahead and read that, or what's?
Yeah, I think you forwarded this to our town clerk.
I did, but I haven't shared it with fellow councillors. So just to kind of give you an idea where I was heading, I basically was saying that the town has authority to pass bylaws regarding matters related to social and environmental well-being of the town, the health and safety and well-being of all of its citizens and visitors. The town can pass a bylaw to enhance the measures that are currently ordered by the Wellington Dufferin Guelph Health Department regarding the COVID COVID-19 pandemic. Public health recommends the wearing of masks to help control the spread of the virus and has recommended that local councils pass a bylaw to protect the health and safety of our community. So I would think therefore passing of a bylaw would provide further authority for enforcement by our bylaw officers and police services. And I therefore would ask council to prepare a bylaw, ask staff to prepare a bylaw for the implementation of mandatory wearing of masks in all multi-residential, condominium, and commercial units in lobbies, elevators, common areas including mailrooms, garbage storage areas, and laundry facilities, and that proper signage be displayed at all of those locations indicating the mandatory mask bylaw, including the bylaw number and the fines. That's what I was hoping you would consider to your motion, Councillor Taylor.
Mayor Brown, that's fine with me. There's certainly more specificity to what you're talking about, Councillor Sherwood. I guess I was leaving it at, if you're in a public space, you would wear a mask, and period, end of day. I mean, I certainly don't have an objection to making it more detailed, but mine again was anywhere outside in the public, you would wear a mask. So I think we're on the same page.
Okay, so I think where we're at is Councillor Taylor has made this motion. We have a friendly amendment from Councillor Sherwood. Councillor Taylor, you're good with that addition to this? And then we're going to direct our town clerk to prepare a bylaw for presentation next Monday for perhaps further discussion and amendment. I see Councillor Peters with his hand up, and I also see Deputy Mayor McIntosh. So before we vote on that, Councillor Peters.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Taylor. I guess I just wanted to confirm your definition of public spaces before we ask staff to, dream up every potential scenario. You're talking about sort of those common elements in indoor spaces that are open to the public, sort of along the lines of what Councillor Sherwood was talking to. I want to be able to narrow the exercise for staff so that it can be done efficiently.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Brown, to Councillor Peters. Yes, absolutely. Like to be specific, Alder Arena, Home Hardware, wherever you are in a public space is what mine is. I mean, if staff wanted to be, put a bullet list, a truncated list together, I guess we probably should. But I think it's fairly simple to people that if you're out in public, you would wear a mask.
So, sorry, if I may, just to follow up, again, you're still aligning with Wellington Dufferin Guelph's recommendation. We're just sort of formalizing that to allow enforcement.
That's my thinking, yes.
Okay.
Through you, Your Worship.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Thank you. I just wondered if we were putting a date on this. I know Kitchener-Waterloo just passed a bylaw similar to this and put May 31st as a date. I didn't know if we wanted to do that or just rescind the bylaw.
Sunset date that it ends?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, I don't know. My personal opinion would be to leave it open. We'll know when to shut it down. Will we not, based on recommendations from the province? Madam Clerk, do you want to weigh in on this? You've looked at some of these bylaws and other locations?
Yeah, some locations are actually putting a sunset date, but certainly if in the absence of a sunset date, we can certainly bring it back at an appropriate time to repeal it.
Yeah, so we can repeal that at any time, Deputy Mayor, so.
Okay, that's fine.
Councillor Andrews and then Councillor Post.
Councillor Post had her hand up before I did.
Sorry, Councillor Post.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sherwood, thank you for bringing forward the concerns about the apartment building. I had the same concerns, so I'm extremely glad to hear those added on to this motion. Now, one thing that you did mention that I have a question about was the signage. You had mentioned signage being erected in the facilities with the bylaw number. If you're talking about that, are you thinking that town staff or that our budget would pay for those to go up in those areas? Because right now, when we look at public spaces, we don't have bylaw signs up. Everything that's up in our our retail establishments and restaurants is stuff that the owners have printed and put up as recommended by the Public Health Department. So if we're looking at paying to erect signage in apartment buildings, I don't know if that should fall on our taxpayers, because then we may be expected to do the same thing for all retail establishments because of the bylaw that's being added. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts if I could.
Yes, through you, your worship, to Councillor Post. Thank you very much. I know multi-residential units, there's about 37. So I was thinking that if our communications just made something simple so that they could put like a 11 by 14 piece of laminated paper that says mandatory mask required, bylaw number such and such, subject to fine such and such. And I think even if we offered them the template, they could print it out however they like. But I think the signage is very important. The residents that have contacted me have showed me some of the signages in their building doors, and some of them are pathetic. They're this big, small writing. So I'm encouraging, no matter, I think it'd be a small cost if our own internal communication department can just do something plain and simple and offer it to, like I said, I know there's 37 multi-res. Commercial, that would be a little bit more. I'm sure there's several hundred, right, when it comes to the commercial and some condominiums. But in the long run, I think it's a cost that if it is too much, could come out of our COVID relief fund. Our COVID fund, if possible. Does that answer your question, Councillor Post?
It does, Mr. Mayor, if I can follow up. Thank you. So what you're suggesting then, if I'm understanding you, is more that it's going to be a printable document that we're going to pay for our communications department, but we're not necessarily doing the printing or erecting of the signs, because it might be a great idea if we're doing that to have our communications department put together something that is consistent for retailers as well, to make it easy for them to be able to print and download those documents that they can then replace, that will be consistent then with the messaging that the Public Health Department's already doing, but will include our bylaw number. So my thought would be that if we could have them put together something, but not necessarily that we're paying for the printing or installation of it, but that we're making it available as
like
a downloadable document. Yeah, right? I think that's a great idea, especially if we had one available for retailers as well, that would make that message consistent. And then our citizens will just get used to seeing them in all the public spaces that they're attending.
And Councillor Post, my thought is to make it as minimal amount as possible, because if you go to any store or restaurant, they've got this sign, that sign, this sign, this sign, this, and then there's so much words. Plain and simple, mandatory mask required, bylaw number such and such, fines, simple, right?
Right, and I'm wondering, Madam Clerk, should this be part of the bylaw, that it's a mandatory requirement for these types of facilities to post this sign?
Some of the bylaws that have been enacted across the province have included that it's specific that you have signage and the wording as it relates to that signage.
At each entrance to the facility.
Correct.
Okay, Councillor Andrews, you have your hand up, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship, and Councillor Post, thank you for your information, because we're on the same wavelength here with my background in communications. I think that both Councillor Taylor and Councillor Sherwood, thank you for bringing forth your combined motions, or what will be a combined motion. I think that the consistency of messaging is very important, and the visibility of what that messaging is to the general public, be that those from our community or those outside. We have a consistent message that people automatically see. To Councillor Sherwood, to your point, there has been a wash of information every time you go to a retailer, or it happens to be a condominium complex or other locations. There's mixed messages, as much as they're meaning the same thing. Consistency, I think, is very important. So if that can be included in some format in the bylaw, and also to the point that was raised by Councillor Post, a downloadable PDF of some sort that would be available for retailers or whomever would be using this, I think would be incredibly beneficial. It does keep the costs down too, as well, from a staffing perspective and a taxpayer perspective too.
Ms. McKinney, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor, when the chief medical officer put out her order, the communications did prepare a printable PDF that was consistent, that could be used by retailers, that could be easily updated with the town's new information. And we completely appreciate the sentiment of what you're saying tonight, and we're effectively ready to go. It would need minor modifications.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, councillors, is there any further comment here? we're voting here on directing our town clerk to prepare a bylaw to be reviewed at our council meeting on Monday. And the start date, Madam Clerk, for this would be immediate.
Well, I would recommend that perhaps that we
October
give, yes, I think that would be appropriate.
October 1st?
Yeah.
Council Chair.
Your worship, I wonder if it might make sense to bring it in when our new police team starts. We could debrief the inspector ahead of time and then they would be ready to go on day one.
October 1st it is. Okay. All right, so without any further ado, all in favor?
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. So we have question period on this agenda, but is there any questions at this moment?
Nobody
We
on.
do not have anybody online. So we're now moving to item 9, which is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the County of Ottawa at its council special meeting held on September 23rd, 2020. May we have a motion for this bylaw, please? Councilor Peters, seconded by Councilor Post. All in favor? Thank you. And a motion to adjourn, please. Councilor Taylor, seconded by
Come on, Andy.
Councilor Post again. All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
See
Good night,
you.
everyone. Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.
Good night, folks.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Bye.